Through the lavish and gorgeous soundscapes of late-night lo-fi, the classy and elegant dynamics of the genre give your senses the ability to warp your surroundings and take you to a more utopian and high-class atmosphere. One where reality will voluntarily shut itself out and allow you to liberate yourself and experience an ideal, effervescent world where one sip from a can of Pepsi equates to a bottle of Moët and Chandon. Such is further complemented with the inclusion of stunning, low-resolution visuals from 80s commercials and TV spots, exemplified by VCR Classique, Bloodwave, and Waterfront Dining. However, if you've been around the block for a while or are merely new to the niche yet expansive world of internet music, you would have heard one very particular name that has played a crucial role in epitomizing these aforementioned elements that we see and hear in Vaporwave. Within the confines of Bandcamp and the whole of this nostalgic community entirely, there is one individual celebrated by many as a catalyst in one of many umbrella terms used in Vaporwave. Someone whose ideas take minimalistic approaches with beautiful vintage nuances that over time have proven effective in being highly influential, all thanks to their extensive catalogue of classics that sit among some of the most timeless records in the genre. An artist that has been dubbed by many on the internet as the Queen of Vaporwave. I'm talking, of course, about the legend herself, Luxury Elite. Luxury Elite has been renowned and celebrated for well over a decade for a luscious and pristine use of Japanese and Western contemporary music of yesteryear. The blissful, down-tempo sonic landscapes that remain simple yet effective throughout the course of every record that she produces, and the everlasting influence that she's had on the scene. To understand her and the methods she took into forging what would later be dubbed as late-night lo-fi, I had the honour of speaking to Luxury Elite online and get some insight on what became of her identity and how particular attributes from her childhood resurfaced later in life and became a significant staple to the scene's image. If this just so happens to be your first time on the channel and you enjoy deep dives into various genres of music, please hit those like and subscribe buttons and be sure to ring the bell so that you know the very minute when I drop a new video. I also want to give a very special shout out and thank you to everyone who watched my most recent video, which I did last year, called The Story of Converge's Jane Doe. It's become the most viewed video I've ever done, and it really made all the work, all the time and effort I put into that video all the more worth it. And as a thank you, the next video that I aim to release will be about Pig Destroyer's Prowler in the Yard. It was one of the most requested albums that you guys have asked me to do an essay on, so as a thank you, that will be the next video that I will do after this one. With all that out of the way, get comfy, crack open a can of Pepsi, because we're about to dive into the immaculate, lavishing world of Luxury Elite. Before becoming one of the most prominent names in Vaporwave, Luxury Elite was an alias that she conjured up 6 months prior to her actually making any music whatsoever. This identity of hers dated back to Lux's enjoyment of 18 Karat Affair's 2009 release, 6040, where she had developed a newfound obsession with the 80s aesthetic that she initially disliked for most of her life. Given the lush bourgeois aesthetic that she saw on the cover of 6040, this LP defines exactly what she wanted to implement with her own music. And she had thought of the record to be luxurious, therefore incorporating the word luxury into her own persona, and eventually including the word elite to coincide and complete her musical identity. This moniker Luxury Elite that she came up with on the spot would later become her username on turntable.fm and a fan website dedicated to the indie electronic bands Black Moth Super Rainbow and its frontman Thomas Feck, aka Tobacco. Through this forum, some of Lux's friends were musicians and would organise monthly Tiny Chat URL shows that, through this network, were where some of them would perform on the stream. It even got to the point where Tobacco himself would participate online and play a handful of clips containing unreleased material of BMSR works in progress for whoever was left on the forum. It was on this one platform for Lux through all of these online events for a band she loves, where she would engage with a fellow blogger on Facebook, one who would play a part in shaping Luxury Elite into the artist we love, an OG forerunner of Vaporwave whom many remember as Macintosh Plus, Vectroid. A while after becoming friends, Vectroid introduced Lux to her 2010 EP, Telnet Erotica, which Lux immediately fell in love with. Little did Lux know was that the Telnet Erotica EP was dedicated to Sunset Corp, aka One O Tricks Point Never, who was responsible for what many remember as the first ever Vaporwave song, Nobody Here. Lux and Vectroid, however, would unfortunately lose touch with each other over time, but the two still remained friends on the interwebs. Lux would later spend time checking out Vectroid's Last.fm account to see what she had been listening to, and in time, would discover in Vectroid's library some demos of New Dreams Limited by Laserdisc Visions, another one of Vectroid's aliases. Lux had also been made aware that the Laserdisc Visions demo had been leaked onto a blogspot page called Moonlit TV Dinner that also contained the first version of the Computer Dreams record, the first two Skeleton albums, James Ferrara's Night Dolls with Hairspray, and the KGB Man OPN split. Gradually over time, Luxury Elite found herself falling down this rabbit hole of this music that had not been given a proper name yet. She couldn't put her finger on what this new sonic fingerprint she was enamored with was all about, or how it could be described as. The following year, Vectroid invited Luxury Elites into a Facebook community group called Xerox Fax Machine Superheroes, where according to Lux, she was able to interact with people who she considered her idols that made these strange, jazzy records that took her to a different realm. Vectroid said to Lux that she had wished she had sent an invitation to her sooner to the group, but Vectroid was nonetheless very thrilled to have Luxury Elites in that group. This little community also included the likes of Lasership Stereo, Internet Club, and the owners of Bandcamp labels Atlantis and Sunup Recordings. All of these people that Lux idolized gave her the motivational boost of encouragement to implement her own spin on all of this music she became infatuated with. And just like that, in the space of 2 months between the fall and winter of 2012, Luxury Elite had dropped 5 records on Bandcamp. Her first being 101.7 FM on the 18th of October, followed by 1 and 2 10 days after her debut, a split with Mensa Group International on the 12th of November, and 3 on December 5th. From 2013 to 2016, Luxury Elite would spend most of her waking hours traversing the interwebs for samples from Japanese city pop to 1980s R&B and soul music that she could warp and recontextualize on her DAW. With an abundance of resources available through websites such as Blogspot and YouTube, everything Lux was able to repurpose and embellish was nothing short of low-hanging fruit right at her fingertips. Given that Vaporwave was still a new genre that was birthed in the confines of the internet, her artistic expression was limitless, and it seemed that almost every week on Bandcamp there was going to be something new from Luxury Elite for everyone to consume. Whether it were full-length LPs such as Rose Quartz, World Class and With Love, EPs including new classics and controversial, or collaborative efforts with Skeleton Lipstick, Macross 8299 and Cat System Corp., there was no escape from Luxury Elite, and the internet had no qualms in consuming everything that she dropped. With every contribution that she made to this genre that grew ever so popular online, Luxury Elite rapidly became one of the most admired names on the interwebs. In addition, another project that Luxury Elite has been most well known for would be one of her most crowning achievements in solidifying her status with another one of Vaporwave's most distinguished and illustrious figures. A split between herself and another individual that she one day received a follow notification on SoundCloud, and this one just so happened to be from a very familiar Vaporwaver that had also been working on a number of tracks on their Bandcamp and had already produced 3 LPs at the time. The account in question had been using a screenshot of Madonna from a band's Pepsi commercial as their profile picture, and this account belonged to none other than Saint Pepsi. Saint Pepsi had also found a picture that Lux herself posted on her socials, and little did she know that this image happened to be a still from the renowned McDonald's commercial Mac Tonight. Saint Pepsi then sent her the links to the original advertisements of McDonald's Moonlit mascot, and both parties would come to the consensus that if they ever worked on an LP together, this iconic late-night legend would be the mascot. And not long after, Pepsi would ask Luxury Elite if she wanted to collaborate with him on a split LP, which she immediately accepted. For the next month, Lux and Pepsi would throw countless ideas back and forth, hyping and reassuring each other that what they were both concocting was going to be remarkably groundbreaking. As soon as they felt that what they had done was complete, they reached out to Illuminated Parts and sent the final product, which would later have 25 cassette tapes to be pressed and released on Bandcamp, which would sell out almost immediately. This said final product would be celebrated in the Vaporwave community as a cornerstone for what would be dubbed as late night lo-fi, and listed as one of the greatest full-length records in all of Vaporwave. The legendary split LP, Late Night Delight, which has seen itself be pressed on multiple pressings on vinyl, cassettes, mini discs, and CDs since its inception. While Lux's material continues to gain universal praise online, Late Night Delights is regularly celebrated among the masses as one of the most important records of the genre, and one of the first choices to be used as an introduction to Vaporwave. Since we've covered a lot on Lux's history and how she started out, the amount of records she's put out at such a quick pace, how she's made so many connections and became the name that she is today, I think it's time we take a dive and look at the key aspects of Lux's fingerprint as a producer. One of these attributes and a form of escapism comes in a mixed bag of melancholy and contentment, yearning to revisit the simpler times in your life and leaving behind all the responsibilities you have as an adult. While Lux has emphasized how much she looks up to the previously mentioned artists that innovated the very first wave of internet music, there was more to the visual than it was to the audio. Among her earliest influences she would later incorporate stems from her fascination as a child with a Barker channel from the 90s called the Sneak Prevue, a paid television network program that broadcasted trailers and clips of upcoming movies. Given the fact that she spent most of her growing up around the TV, Lux would develop an obsession with the Sneak Prevue channel as well as reading TV guides from various video rental stores. Fast forward to when she was a teenager and received her first computer in 2001, Lux would often stay up late and gaze through her window watching all the cars driving by her house, imagining where all those cars were going to and what those drivers were listening to. Whether it was them simply heading home from work or that a late night drive was their way of frittering away some time. Another instance as she got older was that Lux would stay up as late as 4 AM and acquired a taste for the Weather Channel. She would regularly have the TV on as she fell asleep while the meteorologist described the forecast over some smooth jazz music playing in the background. These feelings of melancholy, comfort, and curiosity that Lux felt during that period in her life would later make their way into her late-night lo-fi mixes and songs that she would produce several years later. Furthermore, Lux had two separate accounts on Tumblr, one for her personal life and the other dedicated to screenshots and stills from 80s commercials, the latter of which served as a therapeutic escape to envision what she believed to be a utopian paradise, one where she could suspend her disbelief and feel as if she had been completely liberated from the struggles of reality and maintaining her independence. Looking back on all of those moments in her life, Lux believed that those elements, the feelings of isolation and a desire to escape realism, played a significant role in her earlier material. Over time, she found her music becoming less lamenting and much happier after years of dealing with a toxic relationship and adjusting to a more comfortable lifestyle. So while producing remains a cathartic outlet for her, Lux's approach stayed within the parameters of sampling 70s and 80s contemporary music, albeit in a more optimistic approach. When I was speaking to Lux online while writing the scripts for this video, she explained further about her fascination and loyalty to 80s culture and why nostalgia plays a crucial role in her identity as luxury elite. My office is a time capsule of 80s and 90s trinkets. My wardrobe is vintage 80s and 90s clothing and accessories in general. I loved living in the 90s, and I love experiencing flashbacks and references to the past, and nostalgia really fuels me. I don't continuously live in it as I once did. I've been able to pull myself out of being deep into nostalgia world and ignoring everything else, but I still allow my life to be colored by it while still living in the present, and I love that. With the innumerable amount of TV spots, movie trailers and upbeat commercials archived throughout the internet, Lux has not only constructed a remedial portfolio for the world to see and hear, but her audience has been able to connect with her on a similar wavelength. Whether it be through nostalgia or one's curiosity of a time that they never got to experience, Lux's obsession with traversing through the archives of what might have thought to be lost media or was simply a myriad of undiscovered treasure became the bread and butter for Vaporwave. If you ever saw an online DJ set with 80s visuals, any stills from an old TV spot set as an album cover on Bandcamp from any Vaporwave producer, there was a very good chance that that person was inspired in some way, shape or form by Luxury Elite and her reputation in the scene. Though she's kept her anonymity on a tight leash between the URL and the IRL, Luxury Elite has never shied away from actually showing up to live shows and giving her audience the true Luxury Elite experience in person. There were a handful of instances where Lux would actually earn her chance to perform her music in small local venues, though they were never documented for the sake of keeping Lux's identity safe out of the limelight. However, one opportunity she landed would change her life forever and became one of the most celebrated performances in all of Vaporwave. Her set at the New York-based music festival, 100% Electronicon, alongside artists such as Death's Dynamic Shroud, Desert Sandfield's Warm at Night and FM Skyline, just to name a few. Save for a high temperature on the day of her live set during the entirety of the festival, Lux's Econ debut was met with a fantastic response, being greeted by hundreds of fans from all across the United States and even some various parts from around the world. Such an opportunity that brought many from the URL to the IRL and be able to give their audiences a spectacle that couldn't be imitated in the same manner as listening to their music online or on physical media. Even I was able to experience this when traveling to America for 100% Electronic on 4 in 2023, and not only was that a bucket list thing for me, given the fact that I live on the other side of the world, but witnessing Luxury Elise in all of her glory alongside Saint Pepsi, Neon Vectors and Enrail on the first day of the festival was something so much more than euphoric that I could not begin to describe. Whenever she could make it feasible within her schedule, Lux was more than happy to contribute to online festivals and charity streams, where she would organise sets with her own music and supply visuals that mostly consisted of 80s TV spots, commercials and a plethora of other 80s based pre-internet era content. No matter how big or how many of the opportunities she receives were, Luxury Elite always saw herself as an equal to everyone else on every lineup she was a part of, and would often take part in many of these streams, giving props to smaller and lesser known names in the scene. So after all these years, how does Luxury Elite feel about all the praise leading up to where she is now? To this day, whether it be a simple emoji or an entire article emphasizing their enjoyment for her work, Luxury Elite remains astonished by all of the accolades she continues to receive, especially for her earlier work when she thought she had very little know-how on music production. Having people praise my work when I barely knew what I was doing back in those days was a hell of a rush for me, and it definitely motivated me in the beginning to keep churning songs and albums out. Eventually I realized that my prolificness was happening at a price, since I felt like I was focusing on more quantity than the quality of my work, and I shifted my priorities to making my standards much higher. However, most importantly, I remembered a pro tip that was told to me by Transmudio: make music that you would listen to, and don't focus on the reactions of others. And he's not wrong. As much as I enjoy the response by fans and friends, I have to make sure I don't get too absorbed into it. Not everybody's going to like your work, and that's fine. As long as I like it, that's all that matters. To gain such a large universal following from the scene has not only inspired Luxury Elite to fork out more music, but it's also helped her earn a title that has been shared with Vectroid, aka Macintosh Plus in the scene, as the Queen of Vaporwave. But one of the most incredible nods to her legacy outside of the scene is that a Vaporwave-styled bar based in Milan called Unseen has a cocktail named after Luxury Elite. Given that it's been well over a decade since she started out and continues to pump out as much music as she can, really demonstrates her commitment and gratitude towards the scene, and it's one thing that I find about her character very inspiring. One of the best things about Lux's music is that it really does make you feel good, and not just in a nostalgic sense. It's very difficult to listen to her discography without suspending your disbelief and be able to immerse yourself into a world that she carved up herself through her careful yet solid choices in repurposing old songs. No matter where you are at the time of playing her music, anything in Lux's catalogue has the magic ability to convince your mind that you have stepped into a more utopian world where you can shut out all the responsibilities you have in your life. If this is your first time hearing about Luxury Elise and would like to know where to start with her discography, I would suggest starting off with her split LP she did with Saint Pepsi called Late Night Delight, as it's not only the fan favourite, but it paints a picture of what makes late night lo-fi the subgenre it is to the Vaporwave community. Some more that I would strongly recommend are Prism and of course World Class, which many in the scene believe to be some of her best work to date. I would also love to hear your thoughts in the comment section below on Luxury Elise and what her music means to you as a fan, how it translates to you when listening to any of her songs or albums, how you discovered her, or any special interactions you may have had with her in the past. But until then, big love from your boy Daydream Deluxe, keep those bangers spinning, and I will see you all in the next video.